and candidates who are here today. We're excited to host this forum. And I just want to say that now more than ever, local journalism is incredibly important. And as Evanston prepares for its upcoming elections, the Daily Northwestern, the Evanston Roundtable, and Where the People Meet TV are really dedicated to providing accurate and engaging and transparent coverage. So we're really looking forward to this forum today and getting to talk about and ask questions about the issues that matter the most to Evanston.
And hello, can you all hear me? Okay. I'm Malika Gardner with Where the People Meet, and thank you, Lily. I called her up and said, let's organize a forum. It's crucial right now. And I wanted all the media to get together to really do this. And the roundtable said, we'll come on as panelists. So it's important that we get the right information out. So thank you so much for working with me on this. Thank you. The stakes are definitely high right now. And across the country, we see things shifting in policy, in power, in leadership. And Evanston is the same thing. We have a lot of shifting taking place. And some people see it as progress, and they're excited for what's to come. And then others see this shifting as a serious concern. So whether you agree with it or you don't agree, you support, you don't support, the point is it's leadership that matters. It matters. And this property that we're on right now, the history of this property, think about the leadership. Black families lived on this property. They had homes. It was the leadership back in what, 1930? 1929. The leadership decided they wanted this land. So they literally picked up the houses from the ground and moved them to the 5th Ward. That's how powerful leadership is. That's how powerful it is. And that's how powerful elections are. Because guess what? It can happen again. Might be happening right now, it just doesn't look the same. So we gotta pay attention. We gotta stay engaged. We gotta stay informed. And so I thank my media crew, friends here, Heidi Rondova, helping us out, my partner in crime, Don here, Percy, my mom, everybody, and all of you for coming out, because you could have been at the Super Bowl, watching the Super Bowl. But you put Evanston first, and that speaks volumes, and I thank you. So listen closely to all the candidates, the questions, and we will be coming out to get questions from you to ask the candidates. And thank you to the candidates. They're all coming at their different times. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for coming and take the tough questions from the panelists and the residents. Thank you so much. So we're going to get started and get this ball rolling. We found the heat, so they have turned it up a little. Thank you.
Your daughter would be proud.
Call me this afternoon. Dad. Great line.
Yeah, sure, it was a great line. I just wanted to say, he wasn't the only one in the 3rd Ward. The reason I was here was because I was looking for the preliminary. And now I know why there are so many signs in the 3rd Ward for you. I just texted my daughter and said, I can't, because I know, but they never do, and they're not allowed to. I don't know. I don't see You know what, maybe I could. Maybe she could walk over. Probably, okay, that's good. I'm in one of those 120 buildings that can't come we also can't have electrical because we don't but so here's what I want to say to you. So I have
You usually start whoever has the mic, but I got it now. My name is Krissie Harris. I am a 5th generation Evanstonian. My family moved here from Abbeville, South Carolina, and Como, Mississippi. We lived in the 5th Ward until I graduated high school, and then My parents moved to the second ward and I went away to school to Illinois State University. I have been your council person for the second ward for the past 2 years. I was appointed, and then we had a special election where I won. I've had a great time on the council, serving the community in which I reside, but all of Evanston. If you see me all over Evanston, because when I ran, the first thing I said that separated us was air. Second ward, the only thing that separates us is air from the fifth ward, from the fourth ward. So it's very important to get into the community and be parts of all of these communities within the greater community. So I look forward to potentially redoing that in this election cycle. I'm very excited, as last time, that we have people that want to step up and create new opportunities. So it's up to the residents of the second ward to make the decision who you believe will serve your community well. Thank you.
Thank you. Darlene Cannon. Let's see, I'm a lifelong Evanston resident, a lifelong second ward resident. And my parents came here from the South during the Great Migration, seeking a better opportunity. And we landed in the second ward, which I've resided in. I am running because I like to see more community engagement and back and forth dialogue with the residents. I want the residents to be a part of the conversation. So, you know, how we do that, we bring the elders, the youth, the business owners, you bring everyone together and you collaborate. I want to bring to the ward that when I make votes, I own up to what I've done and make sure that they understand exactly why I voted the way I do, or the way I did. Just, you know, overall, just making sure that people feel welcome. That when people are upset about decisions that are made on council, that they are allowed to voice their opinion. I feel like there's a movement, you know, and not just necessarily here in Evanston, but across the country to silence the community's voice. And so I want to make sure that we continue to bolster residents' voices and concerns in this community. So, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is taking longer than expected. My name is Jacqueline Mendoza, and my family moved to Evanston from East Tennessee, so I have a lot of experience about local government lacking in accessibility and transparency towards its constituents, and our local government being unavailable for us. What I bring to the second ward is not only experience, but lived experience. I am part of the sandwich generation. I am taking care of my aging father. My son is special needs, so I understand where families are coming from. I am somebody with a hidden disability, so I understand where ADA residents are coming from also. So what I bring to you is lived experience and experience and background in managing a large business also, and also working in a large company where I managed budgets. I managed over 200 employees, and I had to learn and work with people who sometimes saw things differently than I did. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yes. I'd like for each of you to pick an opponent and ask them a question, 30 seconds to respond.
I have the mic, all right. So I guess our council person, Krissie Harris, pretty basic is, what do you think the second ward wants and needs?
Residents tell me on a continual basis what they are interested in finding out more or need help with. Some of it is housing. As we know, a few months ago, we had problems on Dempster and Dodge. We had some shootings. Everybody wants to know about their safety, and not just in the second ward, because again, we're separated by just air. So safety has been ongoing, though we did solve those situations really quickly. Housing, in the second ward, I think, is a big concern, but the major is socioeconomics and safety, and we've been working on that. I've been working with the police. Every incident, I think one incident I was out of town, I was there within minutes, talking to residents, trying to figure out where they were, what was going on, what services they needed. And it's about being with the residents. I don't sit up while I'm up here right now. I'm part of who you are. I pay taxes. My children went to school here. I am engaged here. So I think being the community is important. So I think that's what's going on. So I get, since I had it right, I set the rule, you got the mic, you got to ask the question. So I'll ask Ms. Cannon, what 2 or 3, and I wrote my question out, 2 or 3 steps would you take to put our city on firmer financial footing, as I hear everybody say we have problems with our finances?
All right, thank you. I'd look at how we're spending our money and what we're spending our money on. Our budget is supposed to be a reflection of our values. So with that being said, looking at, you know, are we generating any more revenue in this town? Do we have, looking at how much we spend on consultants is another one. Increasing the budget each year when we're clearly at a deficit. I think outsourcing is a problem too when we outsource our employees, using employees for in-house needs that we have. Those are some of the things that I would suggest that we start with. But looking line by line on each budget item or agenda and look at where we can trim the fat, and then at the same time, where can we generate more revenue? As the previous panelist said, you know, we should be charging businesses. So we give a lot of TIP funds and economic development funds, but if the business closes up in 6 months, our money is gone. Unless we have any clawback policies for each and every one of those businesses to make sure we can recoup some of the money that has been spent. Thank you.
And your question?
Jacqueline, I guess I can ask you a question. What are your thoughts on how TIF funds are spent in the second ward? What are your feelings on that?
One of the things I hear from our businesses is that they just don't feel like our areas are as beautiful as downtown Evanston, as the 5th Ward. So I think it's important to beautify our business districts. That way we can get more traffic in the area. And I agree that it's good to bring that money back also to property owners. And we can see and find out once on council how we can better do that.
Thank you all very much. Kind of working on that point of downtown versus the West Evanston portion of the ward. The second ward has that interesting split, the portion of downtown and stretching all the way back. And talking about zoning and Envision Evanston, question for each of you. How do you see the future development of the ward differing in those two different parts? Is density, additional density, more appropriate for one area versus the other? And like, I guess what kind of considerations need to come into that? You want to, I know that I'm asking a lot, but if the downtown question fits in there as well, as far as what's an appropriate scale for that. You each have 90 seconds.
So I think some density is needed, but again, it has to be responsible. I often hear developers say that they're going to put they have to make the buildings be higher because they're gonna put in more affordable units. But we're never gonna build our way out of this hole that we're in with not having enough affordable housing. So we, need to look at other ways of doing that, and other ways are, our natural occurring affordable housing, putting properties, empty lots that we might have that we could develop and putting them in the land trust. And I think, when in addition to building creating more density, we, need to provide adequate parking. Ideally, it would be great if we, everyone wasn't dependent upon a car. But I live by Dempster and Dodge. For me to get to anywhere, I have to drive. And then we have different types of families in this community too, so we need to take in consideration for that. So, with that being said, I think that, like I said already, downtown, yes, we could do some development, but responsible, being considerate of our current neighbors there, and making sure that we're not continuously building more and more luxury, which is not going to help the affordable housing crisis. It's just going to further exacerbate it. So, thank you.
Who wants it?
Density in downtown. I agree. I mean, we have to build responsibly. One of the biggest things we heard from the Optima residents is the wind tunnels that will be created. People are concerned about having a mini Chicago in your area. And is this housing truly for Evanstonians and non-Northwestern students? So I think it's important to balance. I think it's important to, first of all, hear what our constituents want and stand by what our constituents want. So it's important that we find some balance. It's important that we get some community input. And it's important that we don't give Evanstonians a mini Chicago, because that's not what they're looking for.
Thank you. I think, as you mentioned, Evanston and the Second Ward are vastly different from its eastern part to its western part. And how we develop that is, I think, crucial to look at each neighborhood to make sure that we're doing it appropriately. Residential input is important. And when the development that is interested in developing across the street from Optima Views, the first thing I did with the developers was said, you have to have immediate conversations with Optima, because meeting with me, Darlene and I, we share an alley. So we live right down the alley and I can walk 3 blocks to where she lives. Our view is very different. And so I made sure that there were conversations with the direct residents, and I've always talked about that I want to have meetings where it directly impacts that area before it becomes an Evanston thing. Everybody's always heard me say we have 77,000 people and 80,000 opinions. I want the people that it directly affects to be able to hear them clearly and concisely as much as possible before the other decisions come in. Because it's easy for me to say, yeah, build that there because it doesn't affect me here. So we've had those discussions. We've had the discussion with the developer that if it's not at least 20% affordable in there, I'm really not even interested in a conversation to bring to my community, because that's not fair. I think development has to be wise, it has to be fair, and we have to take, so for me, I find myself in a precarious position because I have to take Optima Views, and I see them here. I have to take their opinion, but I still have the whole conglomerate of the Second Ward. And what does that mean for the city? And remembering, and I continue to tell people, I'm one vote. And I either have to sell that or try to get my council, my team, to understand and help me figure that out. So it is about working together, not only with the residents, but having 9 people be able to work in harmony, that's the most important thing.
So speaking of 9 people working in harmony, I want to zoom out a little bit here. What, if you had to change, if you could change one thing about how the city council operates in this upcoming term, what would it be? And you have 60 seconds each.
Harmony-wise or just,
Anything.
oh, okay. I think we have to be more cohesive, and the problem that I run into being the newest person on the council is the OMA. I want to talk to everybody, I want to talk to them right now, and I want to talk together, and we can't. So we have to have a one-off here and a one-off there, and have these discussions, and then we say something, but then we get on the dais, and everybody says, not everybody, but people say something different. I've heard people talk about transparency and own what you say. And if we've said this is what's best for Evanston, then this is what's best for Evanston. I was the only person that voted to raise taxes. We know that, I own that. But I wasn't the only person who said we would do that. But I voted what I said what I talked about. Because it was for the better Evanston. We've got to just kind of harmoniously figure it out and trust the person in that ward, unless you have another opinion that maybe we didn't look at. And we all come, all 9 of us, including the mayor, so that makes it 10, come from different avenues of life where we see things differently, and putting that into practice and into play with what our constituents need. Oh, she said my time's up, sorry. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh, what am I doing?
Could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, if you could pick anything to change about how the council operates or its approach in this next term, what would it be?
I think, I think there needs to be more collaboration, maybe some team building, but I know that, everybody can't get together all together at once. But I think understanding each other's wards and understanding the dynamics of that ward and what the needs are, because what's needed in the 2nd ward is not the same as what's needed down in the 9th ward, or what's needed in the 3rd ward is not what's needed in the 5th ward. So understanding the needs of the people, the area, and I think from that perspective, when you vote on things that are impacting those people's lives, you're taking those things into consideration, because it might not directly impact you, but it should, affect you in some sort of way when you hear about the long-term impact that it's going to have on the residents and the area that those people live in. So, thank you.
Working together is important. But one thing that I think is more important is that when we see situations like Ryan Field happen, and a certain institution, whichever institution it might be, picks certain people to work with, that those people advocate that everybody has a word in that conversation. I don't find it fair to the 2nd ward residents, to the 5th ward, 8th ward, whichever ward it is, that only 4 people get to work with large institutions and everybody is being left out. And this is not whether somebody is easy to work with or not. This is simply about making sure that every resident in every ward gets a say through the person they chose to be on that dais. So for me, is that us as council people advocate that all 9 of us have a seat at the table in important decisions.
Councilmember Harris, can you name a time when you pushed back against City Hall on behalf of your constituents?
All the time, I think the mayor was saying. I think for the healthy buildings, I'm pushing back, that I'm worried about what that means for rents, what that means for institutions. I sit on Evanston Own It as a council member. I don't get a vote, but I go to their meeting every 2 weeks. It's virtual. I attend the meeting. And they're very worried about what that looks like, so I've pushed back. For the second ward, I am working on some areas that have blight, and I'd like to really fix that up. We've talked about, I won't really go into it, but I've pushed back quite a few times. If I don't agree with it, I push back. And even sometimes when I agree with it, I push back.
When would you see a time when property taxes should not be increased?
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No.
Hello? Can you hear me? When would be a time when you would say, we don't need to increase property taxes right now?
We haven't increased them for 3 years, so.
Well, I'm asking because you voted, you really
Yes.
believe in increasing the property taxes.
I believe in having a balanced budget and making sure that we can do the things that we need to do. I don't cook, so I don't know what eggs cost right now, but if you cook, you know what eggs are. They're expensive, and things go up, and we have to be able to meet the needs of our community. So we have to have the money to do that. And we're looking at a government that is very different and wants to take things away from people, and especially from a community like ours who are very giving. So where do we get that money? How do we make that up? How do we make sure our community has what they need? We need to work on, our council member Reed always has creative ideas on getting new revenue. I think all of that has to work together. I don't think it's one or the other. But we haven't raised the taxes since I've been here 3 years, and I think it's been 4. I wasn't here 4 years, so I take credit for 2.5. But we haven't raised the taxes, so yes.
Well, that was mainly because of the pandemic, so Alderperson Suffredin really led the fight to not raise the property taxes on the residents, because they should come up with another way when people are dying and people are losing jobs. So that's why I was wondering, like, when else, other than a pandemic, would you not want to increase property taxes when it's not urgent in that moment?
As a tax-paying resident of 52 years, I never want to increase taxes. I never want to dig deeper into my pocket if I don't have to. But as a business, as a corporation that supports $78,000, we have to do that when it makes sense. And we have some capital programs, projects that are coming that need major attention, trying to balance that budget. It all has to work together. I don't know if that answered. Okay.
And then we have time for one resident question.
You gotta shoot your hand up.
I don't know if it's regulations or ordinance or what, but in Evanston, the businesses, a lot of them, the customer service is terrible. And these companies you're going into, one now hasn't been there. It's been there just a year, I think. It's Devil Dog on downtown Davis Street. You go into the business now, and that's an area where a lot of young people go, and they're only accepting credit cards for payments. You go into a lot of these service stations now in Evanston, they'll tell you the same thing. And the one at Pittner, it's not Pittner, Fowler and Dempster, I went in there and I didn't use my credit card, and they wouldn't take my cash, and I left. That was a couple of months ago, so they won't survive there. Devil Dog's not gonna survive. And T-Mobile was one that did it on Main and right by the Food for Less Plaza. They're gone, they didn't survive. I don't know where the customer service is terrible. Xfinity right now, there's a program, I was in there to pay a bill. There's a program, there was a female in there and they talked to her terrible. There's a program that Xfinity has going, the government set it up, and it was for, I think, low income, or if you met a certain income. It was during COVID, a lot of people were on it. And your bill was paid, or you just paid a certain amount. That ended January. There was someone in there trying to pay their bill, and when she got up to the counter, they were very rude, and she was trying to give him cash, and he said they didn't take cash in there. Then he looked at her bill and he said, we're not taking this payment either. And she says, well, I always pay here. And I said, well, I'm paying my bill also, because I was right by her, standing by her. He said, they said they're not taking the payment anymore. You pay online or pay with your card or go out or to the main store in Niles. We have a lot of seniors that are on the program if it's still going, and they can't, a lot of them can't make it to the main store, Comcast out or golf in Niles, and a lot of people just don't trust using their credit card with some of these companies. But here in Evanston now, there are a lot of companies that won't take your money. I was at the United States Post Office, and they wouldn't give me change. They wouldn't sell me an envelope with a stamp. I had a $20 bill, and they said they didn't have change and couldn't give me change for an envelope. So I went in.
Excuse me, could you please wrap up?
I went into one of the offices, knocked on the door, and had a supervisor come out, and she did make them give me the envelope. But this is getting scary how these companies, some of them are doing business. They're not going to last if this continue in Evanston.
So, Councilmember Reed and I were part of the group that argued against just being cashless because it disenfranchises people. You have the people who are collecting change on the corner, and that's all they have. And you're not gonna, that's the American way, or was the American way. I don't know what the American way is right now. I'm really confused. I don't think America knows what the American way is. So it's strange, and especially now with what just happened with the man who isn't a citizen here now has our information, has access to our information. So credit card is going to be tricky. I think we just have to keep pushing. Again, Councilmember Reed and I were the main two. There were more people, so I won't take full credit for that. But that were against that, that you should be able to use cash. Businesses reach back to us, and part of their concern was safety. Whether I agree or not, this is what we were told. Safety was an issue, that banks weren't taking cash at the same rate, which I know is true, like coins. They don't want to take coins anymore. So we just have to keep pushing through that. And what we were told at the time is they were going to allow for cash, but the preferred method was credit. About rudeness, I don't do that. If you watch council meetings, I don't do that because we're all human. I expect respect and I give it, and I call it when it is. I think everybody should, but if people don't have a voice, they can reach out to their council member of that. They reach out to who they're comfortable to, because again, I cross, and Councilmember Reed can tell you, I'll go to the 8th Ward in a minute to get something fixed. So you can go to your council member or a council member, and we can have discussions with those businesses. I think part of it is training. I don't think businesses are training people the way they should be.
I agree, and rudeness should not be allowed anywhere. I think that responsibility is up to the business, because I'm sure that with your complaint, there's been others, so they need to address the issues with the individual employees. Cashless can be a problem, yes, for the homeless, but also for our seniors, because I had a friend's mom who used a credit card, and she was paying for something that cost $4, and they took out $4,000. So seniors are leery of using their credit cards, and rightfully so. So we have to find another way for them to be able to access the buildings, businesses. We shouldn't be discriminatory, because not everyone has a checking account and has access to, various ATM cards. So we have to find a happy and healthy medium where we can meet everyone's needs. I know there was talks about getting cards and putting money in a machine and then loading up the card. I don't know how likely that is for someone who's a senior, who's like 75, 80 years old, how comfortable they feel doing that. But I think that businesses should be able to do both, accept cash and accept cards, because I don't think cash is going away anytime soon. So, thank you.
I feel the same. It's very difficult to control what employees do, but I think it's important to advocate as people who go into businesses and just let the managers know what's going on. A step could be to talk to your council person, let them know what's going on. They might have a relationship with the business owners and might be able to advocate for you also. And I agree, cash is not going anywhere soon, and I would definitely love to look into the referral that Reed put forward to see about that and how that would work for businesses, but more importantly, have businesses input and see how we can better help them with that. I agree that not having cash, business not taking cash it makes it difficult for a lot of people. At one point in my life, I didn't have a bank account for a long time, so I definitely understand where you're coming from. So I just think advocacy is important, and just keeping an open conversation with your council person about any issues you're having with the businesses and how we can better advocate for you.
Thank you so much. So each of you take 30 seconds with a final thought, and then we will move on to the first ward and then the mayoral.
So again, my name is Jacqueline Mendoza, and I'm running for city council because I want to be somebody who is an advocate for the second ward. I don't feel like we have a fighter for the second ward up in the dais. And I think it's important that we have somebody who puts residents first, who is able to work with everybody involved, and when challenged with a different opinion from our constituents, that we welcome it with open arms and that we don't stop it just because we don't like it. I think it's important to have somebody up there that is bold, somebody that is inclusive, and somebody who has the lived experiences that we see in the second ward. Thank you so much.
So thank you all for having us. Darlene Cannon here, running for second ward. I have, the lived experience of living in the second ward and seeing the change, and change is good in many ways, but I am very concerned about change when we are displacing people due to the lack of affordability. I want to see residents to become more engaged in city politics, and that we take into consideration what they're saying. We're there to represent them. And whether they're downtown or they're over by Dempster and McCormick, we need to be advocating for everyone, their concerns, and listening to them and engaging with them as much as we can. So, thank you.
Krissie Harris, your current second ward alderperson. I have a couple thoughts that just based off what I heard. You don't have to fight. You can work collaboratively, and that's how you get things done. If I fight by myself, I am one vote. But if I get other people to understand what the concerns of my residents are in the second ward, I can bring them along. And there's an African proverb, you want to go far, you bring other people with you. So it's not about me. It's not about me needing this position. I want to do the work for the community. I'm a part of the community. I've proven myself to the community. I've heard what my residents have said. My emails show that. I created a system because we like to FOIA, we like to sue. Check my emails. I separate my things, and then I go back and say, this is what the residents said. And just because we have a loud minority of people that have comments does not mean they overwhelmingly represent the needs of the ward or the city. They're just louder, and they're more passionate about it. And that's not wrong, but louder sometimes feels like it's more people in the room, and that's not always true. So thank you, and we'll leave it up to you all as the second ward citizens to make a decision. Thank you.